especially at high levels, has absolutely ridiculous DPS. So, you know, if you can't nuke him and make him run away, you're screwed. But if you can, he's pretty much worthless. It's not like he has some little support spell or a nice aura that otherwise helps the army. Unless the Blade Master is in the battle actively whacking on your units, he is completely like a wasted investment. So that is why I say smack him around when you see him, and basically don't fret the fact that he's going to get away. The Blade Master is one of the few times when you have situations where you want to go ahead and nuke a hero that you won't necessarily be able to get a kill on. I was kind of retarded there. I let him steal like I think I let him steal like a scroll of health. I may have let him steal another item or something too. But anyway, anytime you kind of get him low on health, that's a very good time to like go creep something else, because it is going to take him a little while before he's actually able to recharge and come back and like start stealing creeps from you again. Because otherwise he basically risks that as soon as he shows his face, he's going to get killed. You'll also notice, go ahead and take the Fog of War off, because this is something fairly important that I want to point out. He really hasn't been able to creep any expansions out at this point. So like in the early like tier 2 department, you really don't have to worry all that much about him like sneaking an expansion somewhere. I mean, if he hasn't harassed you at all, like, and you haven't seen hide nor hair of his Blade Master, yeah, in that case, you could be looking at a situation where he's actually snuck an expansion somewhere. But generally, if he's been up harassing you, it's not going to be until like your like tier 3 time that he's going to be able to start creeping out expansions. So just don't really waste a whole lot of energy scouting. I kind of blew it there and lost my Lich. That was basically just a mistake. I should have kept my Death Knight with him. I probably should have been, yeah, I just should have been more careful. I kind of let him get separated, and the reason, by the way, that I got a couple of Wyverns out when I saw him, I got a couple of gargoyles out when I saw that he had towered up. That's just because the most common strategy for somebody that is towering up is to basically just mass up Wind Riders. Or to get like bats as well, because they'll use bats to kill your buildings off. So that's why I went ahead and popped out a couple of gargoyles. That way, if he decides to come like harass me with like a couple of Wind Riders or something, I can screw those over using like Nova and my Gargs. By the time he found me, he had more like 7. I think he had 5 actually, and those are actually able to kill off 2 Gargs, but it's still better than having him like totally. If nothing else, those Gargs sometimes will buy you enough time to like get the rest of your army away if you're not stupid like I was and just kind of let your Lich get dropped. Okay, anyway, now that I've got tier 3 out, there's 2 things. Anytime you're going up against a Blade Master, you got to get Shades. That's just the name of the game. I go ahead, since he's going for Wyverns and I start out with Ghouls. Basically, the best counter available to me is going to be Ghoul Fiend, which is extremely, extremely effective against Wyverns, especially when your opponent doesn't actually have an AoE hero. That is one of the disadvantages to the Blade Master, is he's not going to be able to chain wave your ghouls. So he really is less of a threat to ghouls than usual. You want to try and bring some staves or some rods of necromancy with you. By the way, this is okay. So he's pushing my base here. He really didn't have enough stuff to be doing this, and I think this was just a mistake on his part. But you know, sometimes. Well, I'll take it back. It wasn't totally a mistake. I think he killed about as much as my stuff as I did of his. So that was relatively even. But the gist of it is that if you've got, you know, a few fiends, kind of watch their health. Like, keep them in a group with your Death Knight. and coil them if they start to get into too much trouble. You're probably going to lose one or two, but just basically web a couple of his wyverns. I go ahead and use auto, and you can even focus him down with your ghouls, or you can really, there's nothing in his army that is bad for you to deal damage to, so you can kind of just let your ghouls attack, although it's really not a bad idea if you can conveniently do so to focus down the wyverns. With Ghoul Fiend, I wouldn't really recommend generally trying to like web a couple of wyverns and then back off. The reason is that you kind of want to get your ghouls in there doing damage as quickly as possible. If you try to dance with them, what's going to happen is it's going to use wyverns do like an obscene amount of damage really fast, coupled with like critical strike from the Blade Master. What he's going to do if you try to web a couple of wyverns and then back off is he's going to pick off some of your ghouls. Okay, here's the important point in the game, really. This is kind of where it's won or lost. You see, I scout. I was using my shade to scout. That's pretty much a given. Like I said, once you get to tier 3, you really do need to start looking for expansions, because once he's got like wyverns or any kind of army out, he will actually be able to creep. And most of the time, people that are doing the tower thing are going to try to expand, because they generally have like a very strong harass type army available to them. However, they typically don't have a hero level advantage, or even like a unit advantage. You're going to see pretty soon, basically, that his army can't exactly fight mine. This was pretty much so a desperation push. I was actually a little bit late. It would have been better if I had found his expansion before so many of his towers had started going up. You notice when they were available, you definitely want to attack the towers as they are building, because they take double damage when you're doing that. Unfortunately, he does have the tier 3 upgrade, so that means that that his towers are actually not taking like massive amounts of damage from my destroyers. I just went ahead and got those because A, they're decent against wyverns, B, I don't know. They were just kind of what was available. I'm not gonna make the argument that Destros are the best thing available. I'm not entirely sure why he didn't try and get his army in there. I think he was trying to avoid having to fight at all. He was hoping that his towers were going to do enough damage to my army. Basically, the gist of what I did, for one thing, when you're pushing into towers, you really need to put one of your heroes first. Now that I'm fighting the wyverns, you notice I pulled my ghouls back a little bit. I didn't want them getting all killed right at the beginning. I wanted to just kind of pull his focus off of those, and then once I got some of his wyverns webbed, I kind of brought him back in. I'd actually rather like lose a fiend or two than like have all of my ghouls go down like right at the beginning of the battle, because as you can see, like towards the end of it, I only need like one fiend, or not even one. I just need my heroes, and I can pretty effectively screw over his wyverns, or what's left of them at that point. Let's see. I'm also going to get a Dreadlord. I don't know if I'm building him yet, but Dreadlord for late game is an excellent soft counter against the Blade Master. Note the positioning of my shade here. I kind of pulled it into the Blade Master's retreat path. If I'd had either cooldown or something on my Death Knight, I actually might have been able to pop a kill on him right there. But the gist is the Blade Master will get away very, very quickly if he's able to run out of your detection range. So if you know that like the Blade Master is going to come in and try and like pick off one of your units and then run away, you basically take your shade and kind of move it to the area where you think that he's going to retreat in. That'll give you a little bit of extra time to get that last nuke off on him. And once again, this is basically how I'm dealing with the Blade Master. Yes, he's picking off my units, but he's having to blow like potions and things like that to keep his mana up, to keep his hit points up. And eventually he just kind of runs out of steam, and he's got to hightail it out of there. So that is basically how I deal with the Blade Master. Even though he gets away, basically I still accomplish my goal of taking down his expansion. And now the result of all that is that unit-wise,